Elections are funny things. One day in June, the voters might reject you, but then just a few months later, they may have a change of heart and want you back. We have 4 former members of the Ontario legislature with us tonight whose provincial political careers took a detour this past summer, but all of whom have a new lease on political life at the municipal level. And with that, we welcome, from our studio at Confederation College in Thunder Bay, Bill Mauro, who next month will be sworn in as the new mayor of that city at the Lakehead. And here in studio, Dipika Damerla, an incoming member of Mississauga City Council, Granville Anderson, an incoming member of Durham Regional Council, and Michael Harris, an incoming member of Waterloo Regional Council. And it's great to have you 3 ex-MPPs here in our studio. Bill Mauro, nice to have you on the line from Thunder Bay. And I want to start with you, if I can, Mr. Soon-to-be Your Worship, because I think to find out about the new job, we got to find out what happened with the old job. And the fact is that on the 7th of June, 24,000 people cast a ballot in Thunder Bay, Atikokan, and you lost by 81 votes. You lost by 0.25%, and I want to know how miserable election night was for you.
Well, you know what, Steve, it's interesting. It really wasn't that terrible. We knew as a group going in, and I'm sure most of us from our party right across the province knew going into this election that we were in tough. And that's the way it turned out. The 80 votes part really didn't bother me at all. I think that looking back retrospectively on the campaign, there were some decisions that we made as a group that probably bothered me a little bit more than the actual result at the end of it, that I think influenced the result perhaps more negatively than would have been the case. But otherwise, the 80 votes didn't mean much to me one way or the other. I had a great run, 15 years, was really fortunate to be the member for 15 years and to be in government for all 15 years and to be able to really positively impact my community of Thunder Bay over that time. So I felt great about the experience and the run that I had.
Dipika, it wasn't as close for you in Mississauga East Cookville. You lost by almost 5,000 votes. What was election night like for you?
Just one thing I just want to correct, Steve, and that's I'm also a member of Regional Council and City Council. Just wanted to make that.
You're on Peel Region Council as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It was a tough night. You know, right to the end, I hoped that I'd be able to squeak a win through, and it was very modern. I actually learned by Twitter that I lost because a tweet came across my cell phone while I was actually driving home from pulling the last vote, and you know the polls had closed, and one of the volunteers was just driving me home, and I think like 8 or what time did the polls close? 9? So maybe 9:06, 9:10. There was a tweet that said, "Oh, all of Mississauga went blue." So that's how I learned.
You learned that on Twitter that way, that quickly. Kind of brutal.
Yes.
At what point do you stop wondering why? You know, 7 survived, right? 7 MPPs from the Liberal caucus made it. You weren't one of them. At what point do you stop being angry that you're not one of the 7?
I don't know that I was ever angry, but I was certainly disappointed. And I think it comes down to, you know, you keep wondering, well, what could I have done differently? It's interesting that Bill says that, you know, losing by 80 votes didn't bother him. That would kill me. The fact that I lost by 4,000 and change votes means that, you know, one thing I was thinking was there's nothing I could have really done, or there was nothing that I did that really went wrong in a big way or would have changed the outcome. So I wasn't second guessing. Well, I still did second guess, but I didn't second guess as much as I would have had the margin been smaller. So in a way, I was glad that the margin was large because it was, you know.
Decisive.
Yes.
Granville, it was more decisive where you were because these 2 came second. You came third.
That's right.
In Durham. 17,000 votes behind the winner. What was election night like for you?
You know what? It was unexpected. I expected to lose, maybe not by that large a margin as it turned out to be. But I am one who was proactive in my riding, so I knock on doors from time to time, whether it's election or not. And so I had a feeling that the wind was going in an opposite direction. So I wasn't totally surprised. Disappointed, yes, but I have no regrets because I believe I've accomplished quite a number of things for my riding. There's GO train services I fought for, and that's coming, hopefully. Relatively new hospital in Bowmanville, 407 expansion to the 115, new build, long-term care beds, hospices. So at the end of the day, I believe I worked hard and I there's nothing more I could do. I ran a good campaign, and it just wasn't good enough. People wanted change, and the wind of change was there. So it's, on my part, I don't think there's anything more I could have done.
Okay. Michael Harris, I want to bring you in at this point, and I guess we should say, you know, it reminds me a bit of the Sesame Street line where one of these things is not like the other. You're not an ex-Liberal MPP, you're an ex-Tory MPP, and you didn't lose, you opted not to run again. And I guess one of the ironies is your name's Michael Harris, and you were replaced in your riding by a guy named Mike Harris.
Yeah.
Junior, son of the former Premier. He's the third Mike Harris to be in provincial parliament. What was an election night like for you, knowing you weren't going to lose because you weren't running again, but you were kind of asked by your party not to run again, so it was all kind of complicated.
Yeah, it was. You know, if I told you the story and you didn't know, you likely wouldn't believe me, but it is what it is. Of course, I didn't make it to the June election. It wasn't because of the interest in the issues, my passion for my community and its people that I got to represent. Of course, politics, I think, played a big role in that, as you had mentioned. Election night, I was with my family, actually, in a special place, as Elections Day usually always was for me. We went to Disney, took my boys there, and so we were at Magic Kingdom. It was, of course, a magical day on another note, and it was good to be with my family. I've since, obviously, had eye surgery, and I'm recovering from that still at home. But I'm excited about my new opportunity to serve the community in the region of Waterloo. I'm happy and thankful that the voters, who are ultimately always right, got to see through and see past that, perhaps, and they sent a strong message that you know, I get to continue working on their behalf.
We'll get to the future in a second, but were there any feelings, any complicated feelings with you? On the one hand, happy for your friends, I guess, who finally get a chance to be in government now. On the other hand, disappointment that you're not there with them?
Yeah, it's bittersweet. You know what? I served 7 years with, you know, these folks. Many of them are my extremely close friends. We lived away from our homes, away from our families. We spent a lot of time together. And so, you know, I'm very happy for them. Many of them are extremely qualified and will do amazing things now in government on behalf of the people of Ontario. So I'm excited to follow them in their follow them in you know, their new roles in government. But again, of course, you know, sitting in opposition for 7 years, knowing what needed to be done, and finally getting a chance to serve in government. Of course, I went through the 2014 election when we lost, and we were hoping to go into government. So, yeah, it's bittersweet, but you know what? I look forward to speaking to them as often as I can, and I wish them all the best.
Bill Mauro, losing obviously is no darn fun. It's hard. You got to obviously lick your wounds for a while. But how far after the June 7th election do you start thinking to yourself, you know, maybe I'm not done yet after all?
Well, I'll tell you honestly, Steve, I was not in. I had a lot of people asking me almost immediately if I would consider running municipally for mayor. That began almost immediately. The deadline for entering the race, of course, was July 27th. I went down on July 26th and registered. But to be quite honest with you, I was not wholeheartedly in the race for many weeks after that. We really ran a very small campaign, basically 5 people, no radio, no TV. Did almost nothing politically until after Labor Day. Once I decided that I would go after this, it wasn't until after Labor Day. So it took me a while to really make up my mind and have my heart back into this. I'm happy that I did. I'm thrilled with the result. I'm getting more excited about taking on this work again day by day. And I would tell you that it was really an interesting exercise through the municipal election where I really did rediscover where there is a much more definitive connection between the electorate and municipal politicians than there was during my 15 years as an MPP. I tell people I couldn't find the intensity in a municipal election. There was something missing. I felt through my time for 15 years, you're dealing with healthcare, you're dealing with education and highways and community services and correctional services, and the list goes on and on and on. And yet somehow that did not seem to resonate with people as much as when you ran for mayor. And I had 21 years of experience before this particular election. I served as a councillor for 6 years in Northwood Ward here in Thunder Bay, and then 15 years as an MPP in cabinet both. But somehow people seem to really touch base with me more through this campaign than I felt in the previous 5 elections provincially. So it was really interesting, and it got me reinvigorated and excited, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting started. And quite frankly, I've started already. I've had a number of meetings already.
Dipika, how long after June 7 do you start to think to yourself, maybe I'm not done?
So it's really interesting. You know, during the during the election, the provincial election, the number of times, and I'm sure Granville had the same experience. You'd go to a door and they'd go, you know, Dipika, we love you, we just don't like your party. And I'd be going like, right.
I bet it wasn't party they were saying. I bet it was Dipika, we like you, we don't like your leader. At least that's what I heard a lot.
That too.
Not to pile on, but that's what I heard over and over at the door.
And so, you know, I just made a joke one time to one of my volunteers saying, you know, if I ever run municipally, mark this down because these are my voters. You know, it was just a joke at that point because you're so fully invested in trying to win. And those who know me, I'm very competitive. So, you know, I was going after every last vote. But after the election, as we went to pick up signs, very much like what Bill was saying, you know, people who have taken my signs in a tough election like this, obviously, they're very loyal, they like you a lot. And the number of people who said, well, Dipika, you should run municipally, you know. And
Had it not occurred to you before people said that to you?
Well,
As a serious option?
Not in any serious way. I'll be honest, you know, early in February, the counselor for my ward stepped down and we just met socially and he said, well, if things don't work out for you, you should consider this. And at that point, February, I was so focused on winning my own riding. I was looking forward to going into opposition. I knew we wouldn't make government, but I figured that I'd go into opposition. And so it was just something there, but it wasn't something you thought about seriously. And again, like Bill, there was a lot of back and forth of thinking, is this what I really want to do? And do I really want to go back to those same doors? It was a very, very tough election for many of us. And sometimes it was personal. And so, you know, I still remember people, you know, as I was canvassing, people would say, keep walking. Like they didn't even want me to go and knock on their door.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah, just keep walking. And one person had on his door, he had taken the time to make up a poster with all of the things that he thought we had done wrong. And then a big caption saying, if you are the Liberal candidate, don't bother knocking. Or I had this, you know, this woman who said to me, I had a volunteer who was carrying a sign, because towards the end we would put signs as we knocked on doors. And we weren't actually going to her door, but she saw him with a sign and she said, I will burn that sign if you put it on my lawn. So, you know, that was, so that was at the back of my mind. Like, do you want to go right back and knock on doors, just having lived through this kind of a very difficult election?
Let me follow up with Granville in a different kind of way, which is to say, knowing that that reaction is out there, how do you psych yourself up to run for another job in politics just a matter of a few months after losing so badly?
You know what? It can be disheartening, and I didn't really consider this option. But then folks said to me, you did such a great job as our MPP, and we need you to contribute. I said, I can contribute in other ways, as I usually do, either whether it's Rotary Club or St. Vincent de Paul or coaching a baseball team. But folks said, you know what? You should consider municipal politics. Some said you should run for mayor, some said you should run for council. So I thought about it, and well, I didn't start doing it, thinking seriously about Labor Day, really. After Labor Day, I said, okay, I'm going to do this seriously.
And how do you psych yourself up to dive back in
again? But I did put
again?
my name in just you know, because before the deadline, and I said, you know, but knocking on doors, so this saying to myself, I'm going to see then how honest people were. They were saying, it's not you, it's your leader, or it's your party. But, and so that was giving me some hardening there, and I said, okay, maybe I should do this. And I did it, and I like serving my community, and I believe in making people's lives better in whatever way I can, whether it's through the political process or doing some volunteer community work whatsoever. So here I am.
And Michael, once again, your situation is a little bit different from everybody else's in as much as, you know, you're kicked out of the PC caucus. Your wife had indicated that she wanted to run for office. Then she stood down. Then you stood in. And how did you, as a family, start to make all of those, like, complicated decisions at the end of the day?
Well, it was because my family, frankly, you know, strong support network. Obviously, as politicians, especially the going away from home at Queen's Park for 8 years, you have to have a strong connection. And you know what? My wife has been amazing. My family is so important to me. you really realize how important they are when you're confronted with things like this. But we knew that our commitment to our community was stronger than ever. And I'll tell you, albeit bad at times throughout your term on issues, when I would go out into my community locally in the region, people were absolutely just so overwhelmingly great. Hugs from complete strangers, thank you cards, emails, calls, overwhelmingly supportive to the point that, you know, you can't not at least, you know, consider the request to continue to serve. Again, it wasn't because of the, you know, the passion for the issues that I didn't have any longer, or for the people that prevented me from stepping back.
Your exit the first time, though, was miserable, right? Like, you got...
I would wish it upon no one, frankly, right. Absolutely.
So where does the energy come from to say, you know what, that was such an awful experience, I want to get back in?
But you know, municipally, you don't have the party apparatus and the things behind the scenes that a lot of people don't always know about. Again, I wish it upon nobody, but I hope, you know, and I see the municipal side of it not having those factions or factors to actually have to deal with. You're there to represent the people on the issues that matter most. And there's plenty of issues that I worked on, you know, in my provincial career, whether it be roundabouts or two-way all-day go, you know what, fair and open tendering, that really I'll be able to continue working on through my advocacy at the regional council table. So I look forward to that.
I want to ask Bill and Dipika a question, which is, you two were both cabinet ministers, and now you're in municipal politics. And, you know, whether it's fair or not, there are people who are going to say, wait a second, you had a pretty cool job before. Being in cabinet is a really great job, and being on a city council is less of a great job. Bill Mauro, to you first. How did you psych yourself up in your own head to go for a job which many people would see as a demotion from what you were doing before?
Well, I guess, Steve, it's a little bit similar to the answer that I just gave in the last question. I did not immediately make up my mind that this is what I wanted to do. As I think most of the panel has suggested, a number of people in the community have come up to all of us and encouraged us to continue to serve and to run. The closer I get, though, to doing this, I must, almost a bit of an admission here, I'm gaining a greater appreciation of the role of the mayor. Even though I served municipally for 6 years before my 15 years provincially, I'm beginning to get a greater appreciation for the role of mayor and the ability to try and frame the narrative, to be the spokesperson for council, even though you're only one vote. I hope I'm not being a bit naive here as I move forward, but I'm meeting with all of the new councillors. We have, I think, 6 new or 5 completely new and 2 who are returning. And only about 4 or 5 who were there previously to going into this election. So I'm meeting with all of them, and I'm really excited about my capacity, my ability to try and frame a narrative, understanding that I only have one vote, to lead the city and try and, I would say, you know, sort of rehabilitate the image of Thunder Bay to some degree. We've had a pretty tough year, or a number of years, 5 years at least, I would say, in terms of some of the goings on here. So I'm excited by that. And as I said, I'm gaining a greater appreciation for the role of mayor as I get closer to taking the chair.
Dipika, how about you? How do you not see this? Former cabinet minister, now a municipal councillor. How do you not see it as a demotion?
You know, when I got first elected, a former premier said this, and it really resonated. Person said that some people get into politics to be somebody, and they will always be disappointed. And others get into politics to do something, and they will always be rewarded. So I think to look at it through the lens of promotion, demotion, I think it's about wanting to serve. And one of the really interesting things was when I was the MPP, and the ward that I'm now councillor for overlaps with my former riding, there were a couple of issues that I really, really wanted to move forward on, but I couldn't because they were strictly in the councillors' area. One was the revitalization of Cooksville 5 and 10. I don't know if you're familiar with here Ontario and Dundas and Mississauga.
Sure.
I feel like it could look better.
5 and 10 are references to highways there.
Yes,
Highway
yes. So
5, Highway
here
10.
Ontario and Dundas. So that's the historic Cooksville. And it's really just 2 highways intersecting now. And I've always felt it could be a lot more like Streetsville or Port Credit with the BIA. And when I was first elected, I was very excited about maybe moving forward on that. But I couldn't. And the other issue that I really wanted to work on was community gardens, because Mississauga has a lot more high-rises and no place for people to garden. So just initiatives like that I was really interested in, but I had to sort of just take a step back because I couldn't get involved as an MPP. So now I have an opportunity to actually work on those issues. So I don't view it at all that way. I just view it as a new chapter.
Okay. Who was the Premier who said that to you?
Can't tell you that right now.
Really? No, listen, it's a very smart observation. I would...
A good quote.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is a good quote. It is a good quote. Okay, do you sit back, Michael, and ask yourself, why did they, I mean, elections are essentially job interviews.
Yeah.
Why did they rehire you, do you think?
Well, look, I mean, they saw my energy and effort from 2011 onwards on, advocating for the issues that were most important to them. Attending community events, I was very active. Constituent-based concerns, I was always very responsive. I came from the private sector, and I believe that, in public service, we should treat constituents just like our customers. And so, difficult election in 2014, defending 100,000 job cuts. I survived that, bitter election, which I think was a true test, frankly, then. Thank goodness for the good people of Kitchener recognized, a hardworking individual that knows at the end of the day that I will stand up for the issues that matter most to them. And I'm thankful for their vote and confidence, almost 17,000 votes in Kitchener, so a large city, to continue working on their behalf on the important issues. And I'm going to be one of three voices at the regional council table. We've got a great community, 600,000 strong, high-tech, booming economy. And so I'm looking forward to getting down to the issues and challenges that face our community.
Well, that's what I want to finish up on, because Bill Mauro, I don't have to tell you that Thunder Bay has been taken into the teeth lately for a reputation as the murder capital of Canada, not to mention issues around racism and Indigenous issues and so on. What do you think you can accomplish in your time as mayor there on these very important things?
Well, Steve, it's a very difficult issue, and there's a lot of work to be done. I am very, very concerned with the reputation that the city has received over the last number of years. In my mind, it's unfair. This is an incredible city. I've lived here almost my entire life. We've been blessed to be born here, to grow up here, to be able to raise our families here. And what's occurred over the last 5 years is very, very unfortunate. That's not to say that Thunder Bay does not have any issues. But I guess if I was to flip this around a little bit and say that the City of Toronto has had 85 or 90 murders this year, we're not referring to Toronto, as the murder capital of Ontario or of Canada. We're not referring to Toronto as a racist city when we've seen the Black Lives Matter movement really take hold there, for good reason. So it's very concerning to me that Thunder Bay has ended up with this reputation. We have issues just like all communities have issues, and we're going to work on those and see what we can do to rehabilitate our reputation. But it's a great place. It's always been a great place, and that's going to be one of the top 3 priorities for me going forward.
Granville, what do you want to see get done during the time you've got on council?
I want to move council forward. I want to see we work collaboratively for the betterment of Durham region. And part of my being there, as now some of the projects I alluded to earlier on, I can put pressure on the provincial government to make sure they're not canceled, and I want to see them through. So that's a big part of that. And around that, I want to see more economic development around places such as the 407 highway. I want to see businesses like where I am out in Clarendon. It's really a bedroom community, so I want to see that transformation, and at the same time protect farmland. Farmland, it's very important that we protect our grade 1 farmland as well. But you want to make sure there's that balance in growth, as well as the quality of life, the green space, etc., is protected. So I want to continue to do that, and I want to continue to advance Durham region forward. Hopefully I can do that, and I thank the voters of Clarendon for the confidence they have in me. I was elected 3 or 4 times as a trustee prior to being their MPP, and now they have seen fit to re-elect me again.
So you've been at the school board level, you've been at the municipal level, you've been at the provincial level, and you've still got to run for MP someday.
I guess that's the only missing piece, I guess.
Dipika, I want to ask you this, Dipika, because much of what municipal politicians do, of course, is go to the province and say, can you help us with this? That's where most of the power lies. I wonder if if you are concerned that it will be a problem for you three ex-Liberal MPPs to have to deal with a Tory government at Queen's Park, does that make you not as good a messenger as, say, this guy might be dealing with a Tory government at Queen's Park?
Absolutely not. You know, one of the most interesting things is when I first became an MPP, it was the Harper government, so all of the 5 members of Parliament in Mississauga were Conservative. And I just have to say that I was really, really amazed at what a good working relationship I had with my MP. He was most gracious, and sometimes I think the rivalry between fellow Liberals could be a little bit more intense because we're going after the same donation dollars and the same volunteer base, while with the federal MP who was of a different stripe, we weren't necessarily going after the same, you know, pool of volunteers and money. So I had a really good working relationship with them. I have a good relationship with the current Liberal MPs as well, and I look forward to working with the current Conservative MPPs.
Let me put that to Bill Mauro as well. When you have your first meeting with the Conservative Minister of Municipal Affairs, how's that going to go?
Well, I hope it goes well. I think to your point, Steve, I think there is a good possibility that it will be more difficult, but not simply because I was a Liberal and now we have a Conservative government. But I think most of us are starting to get a sense that this will be a government that spends less. Part of what I'm doing in my community here is trying to frame a narrative as we hit the ground running as a new council and get ready to launch immediately into our budget session. I'm trying to frame a narrative that we need to be cautious and we need to be prudent. And one of the reasons, there are several, but one of the reasons is I'm not so sure that some of the assistance that has been flowing to municipalities for a very long time will continue. It's just a caution. I'm hoping that they keep municipalities in mind as they go into their own budget cycles. But it's one of the concerns that I have. So it's more about whether or not they will maintain the same priorities of helping municipalities than it is about Liberal versus Conservative.
Well, and I think you also had that job, right? So are you going to resist the temptation to say to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, you know, when I had the job, here's how we did it, and here's what you ought to do?
Well, I guess that will depend on what Steve does. I think that I'm not sure there's been anything dramatic. Yes, Steve Clark. I don't think there's anything dramatic that's come out of Steve's ministry as of yet that's going to negatively impact on municipalities. So far, that's a very good thing. But that is
you obviously don't live in Toronto, Bill Mauro. You obviously don't live in Toronto.
Well, I know you had a little trouble with your municipal election, but I was talking more about the financial assistance that's been flowing to municipalities, not the way they dealt with the Toronto Council issue.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, Michael Harris, what's on your to-do list?
Well, Regional Waterloo, we're finishing our LRT. We're waiting for our Bombardier to get their trains up and running and get that commissioned. It's the big project on the go in the region, of course.
Even when you get them, they may send them back to fix them, you know.
We'll wait and see where that goes.
That has also happened here.
You talked about the
Doing
time.
A great job up here in Thunder Bay, Steve.
You talked about the time to get to and from KW. Of course, two-way all-day go is going to be a key priority for our community to advocate provincially. Of course, as Bill mentioned, we know there's some belt tightening provincially, and I think it's an onus and an opportunity for municipalities to also look from within to say, how can we become more efficient? Clearly, we have a two-tier government in our region. There may be some discussions on where that'll lead during this mandate provincially.
That's a very sort of surreptitious way of saying we're all hearing the rumors that the Minister of Municipal Affairs may just eliminate one whole level of government. What would your view be on that?
I think it's incumbent on municipal leaders to have an adult conversation on their governance structure and how to better serve their constituents and be more efficient. You know, we have to stretch every dollar as far as we can. And the cost of governance is a big part of that. So we have to have a look at that. You know, other issues that I've talked about are on the labor front. You know what, there's going to be priorities of mine, roundabouts clearly, and you know, just serving the everyday needs of my community. Clearly, the opiate issue is another big factor that we're facing in the region of Waterloo. The debate on safe injection sites. We're waiting still for the province to come forward with the details on that, but. You know, no shortage of issues in a great, frankly, massively strong economic, you know, hub in Ontario or Canada, Waterloo region. I'm excited to be a part of such a dynamic community at an interesting time.
You know, Dipika, there was that line in Godfather 3 where Michael Corleone says, you know, every time I think I'm out, they suck me right back in. You ever feel that way about politics?
I love it, so I don't feel sucked in.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Let me thank everybody for appearing on the agenda tonight, starting in Thunder Bay, Ontario, with Bill Mauro, who is the incoming mayor of Thunder Bay, will be sworn in as such next month. Bill Mauro, thanks again for coming on TVO tonight. And here in our studio, Dipika Damerla, who's on Mississauga and Peel City Councils, Granville Anderson, Durham Regional Council,
Steve.
Michael Harris, Waterloo Regional Council. Good to have you all here.
Thank you,
at
Steve.
Yonge and
Thank you.
Eglinton as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.